How many of you remember, I've been teaching a lot of stuff for a while here. And when I have a record of all my teaching here, this is an interesting one here. This was last episode. Here's a cool one. I remember this lady named Aiko Horman, a Japanese lady who had a great healing ministry and a deliverance ministry, spoke in my church. She said one time she was praying, and the Lord suddenly gave her a vision, and she was looking through the sandals of Jesus on a cloud, looking at planet Earth. And here was Jesus' sandals, and she's looking down, and where's my artwork here? She's looking down across his sandals here and at planet Earth. And the Lord said to her, from now on, you're seated with me in heavenly places. Therefore, when you pray, let your prayers be from heavenly places, looking down, rather than from your earthly desperation trying to, what the heck is it doing here? Look up. The board has a mind of its own. Anyway, you got that idea? Looking down. Let me give you another one now. See if I can, where we were last week on our journey. Hey, it's my other pen. My other pen seems to work better. We'll go with the original pen. So I was showing you last week how the spiritual IQ can be enhanced when you understand process. So God shows you the promised land over here. He doesn't show you the 40 nations you're going to battle before you occupy it. He shows you the end from the beginning. He shows you the baby in your arms. Wonderful revelation. He doesn't show you the 9 months of pregnancy and the dry heaves or the delivery process. He shows you the end from the beginning. And the Lord does this for a reason. A woman, when she has a baby, forgets all the distresses she was in for joy that a child is born into the world. Jesus used that analysis. So when you're going through processes, you start off with a dream of the business, the marriage, the ministry. And then right away, you kind of wake up with, what's going on? And that's the distress stage. But the distress stage is really just to reveal your present level of skill. It's the present level of ability and maturity you have. Somebody who's done this an awful lot will move fast through these phases. Boom, boom. I mean, that's what a professional does. They go into the chaos. They're not surprised. Like Marcus Lemonis doing that, TV show, The Prophet. He knows the company's got more potential and it's not making it happen. What does he have? That person, the entrepreneur, had a dream and they're about ready to close shop. He comes along with the skill. He intersects the incompetence and the ignorance and the bad layout of the store, and the branding is lacking, and he fast tracks it through to profitability. Why? Because he knows what to do. So the skill and the knowledge is the result of a process. First the ear, then the full grain, then the full corn in the ear, 30, 60, 100-fold. A process we don't like, but Jesus gained in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. He grew. Jesus grew. It wasn't like instant perfection. He grew. He was perfectly sinless at every stage. But when he had reached mature development, he was released to his destiny. My point is, you're growing. And this is the process. And if you don't know the process, then you think something, but the Lord told me this. Yeah, but the Lord showed you the end from the beginning. And I'm trying to tell you, the Bible's loaded with cues and hints and wink, wink on the process. Let me give you another one real quick before Ed turn this over to Ed. When you go through this cycle, this up and down thing, here's what it feels like. It feels like, here we go again. Seem to be here before, because actually the technical term is you're forming a dream, then you're storming through the nightmare, then you're normalizing the situation, then you're performing. Forming, storming, norming, performing. It's a business model. And what happens is when you're going up, one day I realized that I was kind of like going through this process again. When is this going to end, Lord? And what the Lord said, yes. But notice, you may go through this process or this cycle, let's say 4 cycles you're going to go through on your way to the completion of a major phase in your life. But notice, each time the dream you have for the new building, the distress that you can't find it, can't afford it, can't pay for it, got it, but then you got a zoning problem, and then you finally start to build it, then boom, opening day, and you got it. The point is you went through that, then you go through it again with another program, with your Bible college, with your university you're trying to start, with getting it into other languages, and then you got problems with people copywriting and stealing your material, and you got legal suits. But you notice the cycles get shorter. Now watch this, they get shorter the higher you go, because you're actually learning how to go through faster. Why? Because the skills and the knowledge and abilities that you get with each cycle are applicable for the next stage. Before you know it, I know how to do Kung Fu. See? All right, well, there you go. Now, what I'm talking about is all available in the material I have on lancewallnau.com. Occupy the gates. Not this teaching specifically, but the ideas that'll help you get a vision for going up the mountain and occupying your territory. Go to lancewallnau.com/occupy. That's how you do that. Now, I want you to occupy your attention with Ed Rush. I'm introducing him to all of you because he's one of my dear friends I work with business coaching, and I think he's got a lot to say on this process in terms of relationships, business, and purpose, and handling the challenge of disappointed prophetic expectation. Let's listen to Rush.
All right, Lance, good to be back. By the way, last week, for those of you who are watching, we started talking about this arc. We started talking about prophetic disappointment or prophetic disillusionment. We addressed the issue. What happens when you hear from God or someone else hears from God and speaks to you and it doesn't come to pass? I said, there's this hope deferred cycle where hope deferred makes the heart sick. You hear something, it mixes with faith and hope. You get excited about something and then it doesn't happen and you get discouraged. And then you go back in line at church, you hear another prophetic word, and then you end up in this circle. And if you've been there, I've been there with you. I feel the pain of that. And last week I said, there's three options. Option number one is God lied or was wrong, which we both know is not correct. Number two is the prophetic person was wrong, which is probably not correct. And number three is maybe, you made some mistakes along the way. And that's where I always went as a person who's very critical often of myself. I always went there. And then I addressed the question, what if there's another reason? What if there are other steps required to fulfill the word and make it come true in your life? And that's what we're going to talk about this week. So back to the word. You heard the word. The word was mixed with faith and hope. Somebody spoke something to you. Your business is going to be prosperous. You're going to have a large family. You're going to marry a princess and you're going to change the world, or whatever the promises that you received. And by the way, there's some great promises that are out there. And to avoid this cycle, step number one is to mix your faith with a little bit of training. Okay, now, here's what I mean when I say, this is actually step two. I should probably just number these all properly. Step one is actually just hearing the word, right? Hearing the word, receiving it in faith, mixing it with faith and hope. Step number two is a little bit of training. In this case, it's mind training. Let me give you an example. There are certain times when God, I will never say will not, but often chooses not to push through your own will. I grew up as a person who believed that money doesn't grow on trees because my parents told me money doesn't grow on trees. I was told that the root of money, or that money is the root of all evil, which is a misquote. It's not even in the Bible. I was told that money make me into a bad person. And so when I received money, especially when I started out in business, I was like a way station for money or a Grand Central Station for money because it didn't come through. Now, let's say the word that God or speaks to you or a prophetic person speaks to you has to do with wealth. You're going to acquire wealth and steward wealth and shepherd wealth, and you're going to be blessed to be a blessing. If you receive that word with faith and hope, then the next step is to train yourself to be able to receive money. If you think money's bad, money will not want to hang out with you. And so you need to understand money from a biblical perspective. In other words, you need to understand God's perspective about money. And the step to do that, and by the way, the book that's over here on over my shoulder, you probably read it. It's a book called God Talks, where I teach people how to ask God questions about things like themselves and God and their past and their future and money, which is day 5 of God Talks. And the number one answer, some of you heard me talk about this on a Lance Wallnau Show before, the number one answer I get from people, they say the number one answer that they get when they ask God, what lies do I believe about money, is I'm not worthy. Could you imagine living your life not worthy to receive what your Father wants to send you? And so the first thing you do is you train your mind. We talked in a previous episode about the subconscious mind. If you can train your subconscious mind to receive money, you can receive money. The third step okay, is another training step. Now, this one is actually a skill training set. Let me give you an example. Let's say someone comes to you and says, you're going to be a well-known speaker. In fact, I see you speaking in front of thousands of people, and that exact prophetic word I gave to someone at one of my events. Literally, we were at the Museum of Flight in Seattle. This woman was sitting in the second row. I couldn't get my eyes off of her, not in a weird way, in a prophetic way. You know, sometimes when God just bullseyes somebody on your radar screen, I couldn't get it out of my head. And finally I just said, stop, I gotta stop for a second. I said, God is calling you to speak. You're gonna be on stage speaking to thousands of women. I literally see you transforming the lives of thousands of corporate women. And I found out later she was a high-end executive at Netflix. She was leaving her job. She was gonna write a book and change the world. Now, let's say someone gives you that, okay? Or someone says, you're gonna write a book that's gonna influence moms or something like that. If somebody gives you that word, what's something you should do. If someone says you're gonna be a famous speaker or a well-known speaker, you know what you should do? Practice speaking. Get some speaking deals in front of like 20, 30 people. Get better. Listen, trust me, from a public communicator, Lance will tell you this too. You don't want your first or second or third or fourth talk to be in front of 2,000 people. That's going to be embarrassing. I looked at a video of mine from me speaking in 2008. Oh my goodness. I was embarrassed for me from 2008. Okay. And so practice. If somebody tells you you're going to be an author, learn how to write great stories, learn how to communicate effectively so that someone will take action. Get some training. And then finally, there's time. Did you know sometimes it takes some time? My wife and I grew some Napa cabbages in our front yard. She's an amazing gardener. I stink. This thing's behind me is barely alive. But I love kimchi, so we made some homemade kimchi. And during that time, I watched Napa cabbage in 2 to 3 months grow. And I was so anxious. I wanted to take it out of the ground early because it looked so great. But man, when it grew, I had jars and jars and jars of kimchi. This for you, by the way, is your step to receiving everything that God has for you and avoiding the hope deferred cycle. I wish you the best. By the way, may God's blessing be upon you. Thanks again, Lance, for the opportunity to be on the show. I love being on the Lance Wallnau Show because we're actually changing the world and making it a better place. I love you, man. I'll talk to you soon.
That was powerful. I loved it. Always do love it. I want you guys to always stay tuned because you never know when you're going to get that little missing piece and the big impact that missing piece is going to have. We'll see you again in our next episode.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped